Hello, everybody, and thanks for coming back to another Velo podcast. My name is Mike, and today we've got two brand new bikes to talk about that couldn't be more different from one another. One bike weighs under 6 kilograms, which is just barely over 13 pounds. And the other bike, well, it could fit 2.2-inch wide mountain bike tires. One of these bikes was used in a Grand Tour mountain stage. Well, many of them, actually. Well, the other one, it has front suspension. Alvin has been riding the just released and very climbing focused Cervelo R5. So I'm going to ask him a bunch of questions about what it's like to ride and why someone who might benefit more from an Aero bike, which is a lot of us, I think, why somebody might still want to choose something like this ultralight R5 to ride instead. Alvin, say hello. Give us 3 quick words to sum up the R5.
Hello? Same but lighter.
Okay. Wait,
That's what
it
is.
Does look quite similar. Yeah.
Yeah. In the like presentation like Q&A with Cervelo, like we were talking with Scott Roy, who, forgive me if I don't remember like the exact title, but head of engineering, I believe, for Cervelo. He was saying, hey, this R5 was actually at the Dauphiné and no one noticed. Like everyone was paying attention to the S5, which itself didn't look all that different from the previous generation bike, but this one looks even more similar to the previous bike than the S5 does. But it is dramatically lighter. It's like the old one was like 6.8 kilos, if I remember correctly, which is about 15 pounds. This one on my scale, 13.01 pounds. Like,
boy.
Yeah.
It sounds like you could be a gear higher. We're going to get into all of this, all the ride details and all that stuff. But like, to me, that sounds like a bike where I would be in, one cog. On a different bike, on that bike, I'm actually a whole gear higher, but we'll get into it.
If you're climbing up a wall, then yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Everywhere else, I don't know if that's the case.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
In a complete 180, though, Josh is going to tell us all about riding the also new specialized Diverge 4 and how it evolved from the previous version, which includes a bigger hole, which is always a good thing. Josh, before we talk bike stuff, how is the gravel riding in Slovenia? That's where you flew out to ride this thing. Is it pretty neat? What's it like?
Yeah, so first of all, it is, you'll notice in the video that I at one point said Italy, and it's because we flew into Italy, we then drove basically across the border, and when we would do our rides, we would actually go in and out of Italy. So
cool.
It's right there on the border, and then it's sort of overlooking the Mediterranean. We would get up to the viewpoints, and I mean,
tough life, everybody.
Yeah, it's rough.
That sounds rad. Holy crap.
We had this lunch at like a little like place hanging off a cliff side that was overlooking the Mediterranean, and not bad at all.
Damn.
But how's the gravel riding? It was it was very, it was the kind of gravel riding that I really enjoy, which is that it was roads, but gravel roads, pretty fast and not super technical, which was awesome.
Cool.
Did you feel like you're on the right bike? Sorry. We'll talk about it later. Yeah. There you go.
We're going to talk front suspension as well in a little bit, which is going to be super interesting because there's a new Future Shock as well. So lots to cover there. I really want to just talk about new bikes, and that was the plan. But Alvin told me that we've got some other stuff to cover as well, which includes new things from Garmin. Garmin has some new computers and some new pedals as well. And Josh is going to fill us in. Josh, there's a new Edge 850, I think, as well as some other stuff.
There's actually two. There's the Edge 850 and the Edge 550. And what this really is it's like, how do I say it? It's like, it is the complete 90-degree turn of Garmin as a company. I don't want to overstate it, but that's the situation. At least Garmin in terms of bike computers. So in the past, before last year, the 1050 came out. And before that bike computer, the thing about Garmin's, and they have done this in their watches too, the thing about Garmin's in the past was massive battery life. So the 1040 non-solar had 35 hours of battery life, I think, or 30 something. And then the 1050 came out and it was 20 hours of battery life. What you exchanged for that is this gorgeous screen. Absolutely the best. It even beats the Hammerhead Karoo, which is already a pretty incredible screen. But just like that, the Hammerhead Karoo, the battery life takes an absolute nosedive.
When you say the screen is much nicer, is it like brighter and crisper, and that's what's draining battery life faster?
Yeah. So there's not only it's a better technology, so it's the colors are richer, it's much brighter, it's also higher resolution. And so like in certain places you don't notice that, like on your main data screens you almost can't tell, but then you switch to the map and there's just way more detail in there because there's more pixels to work with.
So
the
I guess
screen is taller too, right? Sorry, like it's physically.
It is a little
it's, like, been
bit. It
stretched
is a
out?
little bit, but not drastically. The resolution, the physical size of the screen. So like on the 850, which I happen to like know because I just wrote it, but that one is up from 2.6 diagonal to 2.7 diagonal. It's not a big difference.
And it's all in vertical height, which to me I think is a good thing because like the previous generation, like 540, 840, it's kind of like looking at square, which itself feels
Yeah.
like I'm looking at an Edge 100 from 2003, 4, 5. I don't know.
Yeah.
One of the things here, though, my big question is when you have other computers coming out where their main selling feature is like a crazy long battery life, like you don't have to plug it in for 3 years or something, whatever.
Well,
And then
yeah, we're
this
talking
thing-
chorus there.
Yeah, and this thing, I saw it's 10 to 12 hours if you're not using any of the battery saving features and the screen is bright. To me, who's somebody who, like, that's like 1.5 weekend rides. And that's not a good thing, is it? Is this a good trade-off?
I mean, I'm torn. So in this conversation, the three of us, I have to imagine we're going like, ooh, I'm gonna run into problems with this. But I'm sure Garmin has done the market research and they go, how many people actually need 12 hours, are going to like have a problem with 12 hours of battery life versus how many people would rather have a faster processor, which also was desperately needed. And processors really drain power. And they don't talk about the processor ever. I don't have any specs on the processor, but I know it's a new processor. It's a faster processor. And then that screen. So with the 1050, I've been riding with it for a year. And I keep talking about the 1050 because the 1050 and then the 850 and the 550, they're all basically the same. The new computers, the 850 and the 550, are just smaller. And then the 850 has touchscreen versus the 550, which does not. There's some other little differences, but that's your main thing. But when you pull up with the 1050, and you're in a group situation, everyone like notices it and they look at that screen and they go, "My God, that is nice." And no one says like, "Ooh, but I was wanting to do a 14-hour ride and now I can't."
I mean,
Is that
I
what they're
do.
saying? Is that it's nice, or are they saying,
Yeah.
"Holy crap, I can feed a family of 6 on that"?
No, so I think that the 1050, so what Alvin is talking about is that the 1050, it doesn't fit on all out front mounts, and it was kind of a pain. But when it is I think that it is rather visually, it's not big. So when you look at the Wahoo Ace, like you see pictures of it and you think, wow, that's really big. And then you see it in person and you're like, oh my God, I had no idea how big that was because it's sort of brick-like. But when you see the 1050, it's at all these angles, it's pretty narrow, it feels smaller.
When I'm riding, like I have a 1030 Edge, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
1030
I mean,
plus
it's not
or
a
something
small,
like that, yeah.
I don't think he has
like
the
that.
plus even.
I don't even know what I have, honestly, but you know, I've never wanted a smaller computer, like size. I want to see all my things, and sometimes I'm always out there by myself. My Garmin is my only friend. Maybe I'm talking to it for like 4 or 5 or 10 hours, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't need a smaller one per se. There were 2 features on these new computers that are pretty interesting. One of them is the group ride feature. Josh, did you read about that?
Yeah, I've written about it. I've read about it. I have written about it. If you read that article, you will see that I do not give it a lot of attention because I have
weird.
never seen it in use. Now, I'm sure in San Francisco or LA, there's some group ride that like you can use this, but This is not my world. You have to get together a group of people that all have Garmin's and are willing to like add some code so that we're all on the same thing. And I don't want to just use Strava and not bother.
Wait,
But
so what is it? Is it that you can see other people's stats? I'm unfamiliar with this.
The
As you're
screen,
riding?
Yeah.
the screen shows other people's like power, heart rate, anything, and their location too, which I think is one of the
Location is
important
cool.
features. Yeah, like if you're on a group ride and you're far apart, I think it's kind of neat. But like, Josh, if I'm riding with you and I'm dying, I don't want you to know I am dying because I'm faking it. I'm gonna like try to look under control.
There you go.
So there's a thing where like the Garmin's big thing when this came out is they had like a video where they show like everybody gets back to the coffee stop and you go like you pull it up and you look who was the fastest up the hill, basically the thing, right?
It's not for me.
And I'm like, that's cool, I guess. In some part of the world, in some magical alternate reality, there are people that all have Garmin computers and can do this, but this is not an interesting feature to me.
Yeah, I think I see this as like two things. So like the first one, like I'll be on rides with friends where like I get dropped on a climb or someone else gets dropped on a climb, and I'd like to see how quickly, like how far behind they are. However, a lot of the time I just have them, like I just have their location on my phone, like Apple Find My or something like that, which I don't know if you guys are using that. Josh certainly isn't because he's not an Apple, and Levy doesn't want anyone to know where he is ever. But like I can see that already on my phone if I'm concerned that they're not more than like 30 seconds behind or something like that.
So Garmin
I also
has
think
really,
this is pretty. Oh, go ahead.
Garmin has really good like almost that functionality. It has this link that it will send out and it shows a map, it shows where you are, it shows if you have a route loaded, it'll show the route. It shows your power, your heart rate, your speed, and I have that set up to automatically send to my wife. And then if I'm meeting people for a group ride, 1 or 2 people, as we've talked about in the past, I will say, I'm leaving my house now, and I will send them that link so that they don't have to stand around and go, did I miss him? Am I in the right spot? Is he, whatever. They can track me like that. So that already is a thing. Also, Wahoo does that automatically. If you just look on the map screen, you'll see other Wahoo users.
Yeah.
You don't have to put in codes and get track.
You can opt out of it, Levy, just so you know.
You can.
Okay,
you
I was
can
just
opt
gonna
out.
say that.
That's
I
what
don't
you were
want
gonna wonder.
that.
Yeah, you can easily opt out of it, and I rarely feel like I ever see anyone on my map screen anymore. I don't know. I don't know the last time I've seen someone on my Wahoo map screen. The other thing is like that feels like a classic Garmin play where they're just adding features, which features for the sake of adding features. Like, and if someone uses it, it's pretty cool, but they need another selling point.
I would agree that it's a classic Garmin thing, but I would say it's slightly different. Garmin is all about their ecosystem, very Apple-esque, right? So they want to be like, look, if you're in the walled garden, then you can all like compete up the hill together.
Yeah.
And the other things that these bike computers, the X50s, the 1050, 850, 550, what they brought to the table was one of the most annoying things that I can think on a modern computer, which they then disseminated to all like older computers also, which is the road, like I don't remember
closure,
what it's called.
road updates.
No, it's like you can mark if there's a road hazard. It's a road
Yeah.
hazard thing, and you can mark it. But this is not Garmin's fault, but this is the fault of users. So there's places I ride in town, and I'm like, that pothole has been there for 5 years, and that somebody is tagging that. Like, come on, people, just stop! I had to turn it all off because it just like
call 411.
You're in an interval, and all of a sudden it pops up on like the bottom of your screen, covering part of your data, and it's like there's a road hazard up ahead, and you're like, yeah, the same pothole that's been there for 8 years. Like, just stop.
There's also some new voice functionality, I think, as well that we'll hit on real quick. The computer talks to you, and you could also pair it with your bonus button for your bell if you wanted, which is kind of neat.
I
Josh
love
is
that.
going to tell
Yeah.
everybody about that while I get rid of this cat that's in my shop and everybody can hear meowing. Josh, talk for 2 minutes about that function. I'll be back.
Okay, so
Make sure to bring the
the
cat too, Levy.
yeah. So the 850 and the 1050, but not the 550. Oh yeah, lovely. Has a an actual speaker. And I'm actually a little bit torn on this, but there are a couple people I ride with who are like, I hate hearing the beep thing, and now it's like a speaker, so it's lovely tones. Polyphonic, I think, is the word that somebody said to me yesterday.
There you go.
And part of that is that it can do things like tell you to turn right, or there's a bell. But the other side of that, I will say, is that I find the incredibly loud, like grating computer beep is actually what I want when I know that so I use it for radar and turns. Those are the two things that beep for mine at this point. When there's a turn coming up, it beeps, and when there's a car behind me, it beeps.
Yeah, I use my turn notifications, and I do find it helpful when I'm riding somewhere where I don't know where the hell I am, which is a lot of times. And sometimes, like, you're going down some double track and there's a right turn, and like 20 feet later, there's another turn, and you're going 30K an hour, and it's helpful to have it tell you those things. So I would say that is actually pretty dang useful. Tell us
It
about
is,
pedals.
but it's a little bit more. I think it's a little bit quieter when it's
Oh.
not just the grating beep. It's
okay.
like a subtle difference, but like now those notifications are actually like nicer sounding. But
Yeah.
I want them to bore into my brain, and it does it a little bit less.
I would say one of the reasons I turn off my beeping sometimes is when I'm riding with other people, especially if I don't know them. Like, nobody else wants to hear that beeping. So if it's like a nice soft voice saying, Levy, turn right in 100 feet, that would be way better than
So
like an
I haven't
alarm.
explored the voice feature, but what I have explored is that just like there's that beep for a turn. So
Yeah.
it used to be like the 1990 or 80 computer beep that was like beep, right? Just
Yeah.
like it's not a speaker. So now what they have is a speaker, so it's a little rounder, it's more full, it's like a better sound, it's less grating to people, but it also is I think it's a little bit easier to miss. I sort of feel like other people I'm riding with that they can listen to when there's a car behind us. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
Get over it, people.
Fair enough. So there's also 2 new sets of pedals for road and mountain, and I think the big things here is the battery change. Can you explain it?
Yeah. Okay. So there is the Garmin Rally pedals, and there's a Look compatible, a Shimano SPD SL compatible, and an SPD 2-bolt mountain pedal. And since the last generation, the power is all in the spindle. So you remove the spindle and you can change the pedal body. But the thing that's changing here is that now, before there was also a replaceable battery. Now it's rechargeable. And so it's just newer and better. The big, complaint here is that Garmin's are more expensive than the Spanish brand. I'm blanking on the name. Alvin, I think you use them.
Garmin's are more expensive than the Spanish brand, Coros?
Yeah, there's a Spanish
What?
power meter brand.
Oh,
There's
Rotor.
a Spanish power.
Favero, Italian.
Yeah, Favero. Thank you.
Yeah.
Italian. Faveros are cheaper, and it's all kind of the same. But I do think, now I haven't gotten to explore this yet, but I'm super interested to check it out. So in the press release, and I will just say for those listening, sometimes press releases give you lots of information and you can really understand. This press release was like, there's new pedals coming. And also my contact left on maternity leave, so there was no one to even ask questions to. And I'm waiting on the pedals. But buried in the no information press release is something about measuring force. And this could be a big deal in a way. Because right now, power meters, what they measure, it's like an engine. Your horsepower or your wattage on a bike is a function of both force in Newton meters and cadence, so RPM. right? So you spin faster, then you don't push as hard, whatever. So there's this measurement of force in Newton meters that it's one of those things I've started to hear whispers about, like maybe there's some insight to be found here, and it sounds like that's coming to these pedals, which I think would set them apart from any others out there.
What is that like? Does that provide some sort of an advantage? What does it do?
It's just more data for you to analyze, I think, is what it comes down to. Like I said, I don't have a ton of experience with this yet. I haven't really dived in, but I think what it'll be is like, so Garmin already has pedaling dynamics where you can see how much did you stand, where are you putting, like, where's your power in the power stroke, things like that. Yeah. Now I think my guess is that what we're going to see is like, hey, at this point in the pedal revolution, you're putting X Newton meters against the pedal, and then so you can do something out with that. I don't know.
I'm pretty curious to see how that gets implemented, if it's in like a 3-second increment, like power, because force just adds angular velocity, right? Like if I remember correctly, like force is like torque and crank length basically, and then your angular velocity is my understanding. And so like how is that, I don't know how that's necessarily useful. I don't know.
So there is another aspect of this that I touched on. This is again, I have to guess, because speaking of rotor, I have talked to the rotor engineers, and rotor is famous for having oval chain rings. And in order to make oval chain rings work with a power meter, you have to take more readings per revolution. So you have to update it faster, because as the oval chain ring turns, there's weirdness, right? With a circle, you know that it's all doing kind of the same thing as it goes around. But the oval, there's like jumps. So you need a bunch of readings from the revolution. And Garmin didn't say this, but they now work with oval power meters. They said that part. And then they did not specify how they did that, but that has to mean that they're taking more measurements. It's faster measurements. So that could play into that also. I think that's where the force thing is coming from. They must be taking more measurements per revolution. And so now they're going to have more detailed pedaling dynamics, would be my guess. We'll see if I'm wrong, but that would be, I'm pretty sure that's how that's going to play out. Now, to your bigger question, is that necessary? I don't know. Is any of it necessary? Are power meters even necessary? Do I need heart rate monitor? Like, I don't know. What do you
There's people in our world, there's people that will always want more data, and it's always going to change. I don't think I need that extra data, but like next month when it comes out, maybe I'll find out that I do, and I do want it. I think the more interesting thing here is, so I have a ton of experience with the previous Garmin Rally MTB pedals. We use them in field tests for like all the years, for the efficiency test. And I will say we did have a lot of battery issues over the years that could be solved by, taking them out, putting them back in. There's all sorts of weird things going on. So from my perspective, like a practical like user perspective, this battery update seems like it makes a lot of sense. Also, you could buy, Josh, I don't know if this was the case with the previous pedals, but now you could buy both MTB and road bodies and one set of spindles. So you don't need to buy, it's much cheaper basically. You don't need to buy 2 sets of power pedals.
That was the case with the previous generation, but because before there were more pieces before. When you took it apart, right, there was a battery like place, there was just more little fiddly pieces. It looks like this is all just simplified, and they seem to be leaning into like the way that Garmin framed that before was a once a season thing is what they would call it. Like they don't expect you to change the earlier rally every ride. It looks like they're leaning in a little more to like it's just super easy to just change the pedal body.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay, let's move on to some other new tech. I usually ride so I don't have to listen to anyone else, so this next product is most definitely not for me. But Laser, they just released the Velvox. It's rider-to-rider communication system, attaches to both your helmet straps, and it uses the Cardo voice-activated chat system that is really common in the motorbike world. Alvin, what do you think of this thing?
I think I'm a little bit more into it than you guys are. I think of like, I see these TikToks occasionally of people who are like impersonating themselves as if they were like on a team and they had a team radio,
Hmm.
you know, and sounds fun. I'm not going to lie. Like, I think it was pretty cool. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think any of my friends are going to buy this.
That's the
They're
thing
not
right
going to
there.
spend the money because we can just yell at one another, and it's never like loud enough for us to need something like this, you know. But I think it's cool that it exists. Like I think of like I have some experience. There's a helmet brand called Cena that has like built-in microphones.
I'm glad you
and that
mentioned
type of thing.
them because
Yeah.
they did that. They have been doing this for years, and it's
Yeah. They've
Yeah.
been doing it for years. Their helmets, frankly, like aren't the most visually appealing, but it's really effective. Like if you're going down a little trail or something like that, and you're like 100 feet in front of someone else, you can be like, "Hey, watch out for this thing," and that is pretty good, I think. And then this, you can just use whatever helmet you want. And so, I'm a lot more positive, I think, than you guys are. Tell me if I'm
It's
wrong.
not that I'm not positive, actually. I actually, just like you, I think about it and I go, yeah, this would be cool. Plus, like, I chat with my friends all the time and I'm a talker. You might be surprised to learn, but
I bet.
It would be a little bit easier. Like, you wouldn't have to yell. But then I'm like, okay, let's think about the practicalities of this. This is like the Garmin thing. Like, it seems sort of interesting, but then you're like, okay, you have to get a group of people. Everybody has to buy this thing. And then you're all going to ride together. Like, when does this happen? In what world is this happening?
And it's also like, here, let me pull up the price really quick. It is US $185 or
That's right.
160 euro or 160 pounds.
I don't think that's crazy. Like the people that are buying
Yeah.
this thing, I think that's not a giant chunk of money to them. And I do like the fact that it's like, it also could be set up for a group thing. I think you could have like 4 or 5 people, and you could have like you could have your little group chat on your group ride if you want.
Yeah.
The one thing to me, they're not small. So it is cool that they attach to any helmet strap. That's really
Mhm.
neat. So you could put it on your preferred helmet. That's cool. They're not small, and you need to use both left and right. So I don't know if you guys watched the little product video demonstration with Chad, but he had the one on each side, and like when they're on, like you look stupid. You do.
Yeah.
I mean, we look
Do
stupid
you know
anyway. We
those?
definitely
Do
do.
you know those little earmuff things that are supposed to cut down on wind noise?
Yeah.
Do you guys know those? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like that.
Do you use those, Josh?
Yeah.
Oh God, no! Come
Oh,
on.
okay, cool. So here's
I'm
what
gonna
I
do
think.
my first metric century tomorrow, and I'm gonna put those on. No, come
I
on.
mean, if you're doing a metric century, that's amazing, and because that requires so much work to get
Yes,
into.
I'm such
like
a jerk.
think
I
about-
apologize.
Yeah. Thank you. I think that this could be useful for like the one that's close to my life, like my in-laws. When they go on a ride together, they can communicate while it's windy, and that sounds cool. And they have the disposable income for something like this, and they're probably not going to buy their own helmet, like a different helmet than what they have right there. And you can like listen to music if you don't want to with this. I think it makes some sense.
Okay, wait. That actually, I did not realize that, and that actually could be because I always ride with headphones.
Yeah.
I use the Shocks headphones, which are it would be a similar thing, right? Open ear, right? You can still hear.
Yeah. But it's not bone
so if I
conducting,
could-
right? So
Right, but if I could hear and talk, I guess maybe. But I still go back to everybody in your group ride has to spend $200 on this thing and then look stupid. But you are bringing up a good point about a certain user case. So
yeah, there's a demographic here, and it's not age specific or something like that, but it'll be like a pair of people who will ride together regularly or something like that.
Yeah.
That's where I see it.
Or group rides, like if there's sort of like a touristy, you've flown to Europe and you're doing like a 3-day group ride with like an all-inclusive thing, and they might have 5-6 sets of these, and you could put them on. Maybe you could stay in touch with your ride leader or whatever.
Yeah,
That's what
or
I've
if
always
you're
dreamed
like,
of.
I don't know, like
I
another
know. Me too.
very specific situation I can think of is like when I used to lead like
God,
group
we're
rides in
assholes.
Texas. Yeah. When I used to like lead group rides, we would have someone at the front with the pointy side of everyone, and then we'd have someone in the very back to make sure that no one gets dropped. Being able to communicate like that without having to pull out your phone or whatever the heck seems cool. That would require 2 sets of people to drop money on that, which I'm not sure is going to happen. But it's cool that I think it's cool that it exists, even if it's not necessarily for us.
Yep. I agree.
I could get on board with that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk new bikes, because that's really what we're here for. That's why I showed up this morning, to be honest with you, not to talk about computers and Velvox.
Yeah.
Alvin, you have been Cerveloing a bunch lately on the new climbing bike, which kind of in my mind is like, it's just a really light road bike that's not Aero. This is like sort of harkens back to pre-Aero days. Can you give me the bullet points on the new R5, frame updates, geo updates, whatever we need to know right off the top?
Yeah, frame updates. It's lighter, complete bike, because you can only get it in North America, at least, as a complete bike. You can't get it as a frame set right now. You could probably guess why, at least in the US. Yeah, so it's lighter. You can get it with a 1x build in red, which is kind of crazy because it's got SRAM UDH now. And the geometry is basically matched up with the Cervelo S5. So it's actually more aggressive than previous generation R5s. Not by a ton. It's a little bit longer, a little bit shorter, or a little bit lower overall. 34 mil tire clearance, SRAM UDH. For me, like, it is like the pragmatist in me where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm probably going to race once or twice a year and it's going to be a crit or something like that. I need that aero advantage, and I'm strong enough that, like, at least from my calculations, I need like that gradient average to be more than like 6.5 or 7% for like a climbing bike to make sense at the pace that I go at. However, I won't deny that this bike rides really well. It's super fun to ride. And like in my review, I say like this bike has reminded me why I like riding road bikes so much, because it has that kind of like immediate feel whenever you step on the pedals, whenever you turn in. It just feels really freaking good. And if I don't worry about the numbers, like even like not thinking about weight, this bike's really fun to ride.
Before we get into the riding part, we are going to talk about numbers and weight.
Okay. Yeah, I'll bring them up. I've got them.
308 grams less for the module. How did they accomplish that, and what the heck is a module?
Yeah, so module, which is what I called it, because they called it like they called it something clunkier. So module, which is what other brands call it. So frame fork, headset, because we're including headset in there because they shaved grams there. Handlebar, seat post, and hardware.
Is this not the NV chassis? I like that. I think that's a better.
You could call it a chassis if you want. Sure.
I'm gonna make you. Oh yeah, I said chassis.
BMC. Yeah, BMC calls it a module. You can call it a chassis. We'll call it whatever we want here. So, chassis works. So tons of weight was saved at the bars, basically. So 1-piece bar. This is also one of the lightest 1-piece bars you can get. Too bad you can't put it on other bikes that aren't Cervelos, but there's
put it on the
that.
S5. That's what I want to know.
You can't put it on the S5, but you can put it on your Aspero 5, your Aspero. I'll call it. You all won. I'm calling it the Aspero, not the Aspero 5. But you could put it on there and get rid of that clunky looking two piece. They shaved 26 grams from the seat post head, which is kind of wild. They redesigned the UDH. The UDH hanger, it's a Cervelo one. So you can put it on whatever bike you want. You can put whatever UDH you want on it. But they've shaved it down a little bit, and it saves 1 gram, which I think is really freaking cool to me personally. Yeah.
So you could still use a regular UDH.
Yeah. So like you bend yours in the field.
You could just get,
Yeah, exactly. And vice versa. You go to a Cervelo dealer, you want to save 1 gram, you can get the Cervelo one specifically.
I have a question about UCI mandated chainstay height.
Oh, you mean the thickness?
What? Yeah. This is news to me. Could you tell me why the UCI is telling me how tall my chainstays are supposed to be?
So it's not tall. It's the like outer diameter or thickness of the chainstay. I think they don't want bikes without chainstays. I think that's the gist of it. The trouble is like if you do like the finite structural like the FEA analysis and figure out where all the forces are going, there's not really any forces that go through the seat stays. And so
The chain stays.
Yeah. Oh wait.
Yeah, wait. Are we talking chain stays? Or
I'm
seat
talking
stays
about the
here?
seat stays. I don't know anything about the chain stays. I know that the chain stays are like a little bit taller than before, but there's no UCI minimum thing going on.
Oh, sorry.
But there is. It is.
Yeah, the seat stays. Okay. They're super slim. They're 10 millimeters by 10 millimeters, which is the minimum, and they only meet that requirement when painted. So if the frame's unpainted, it's no longer legal.
God bless.
There was a made bike.
Yeah.
Danielle, I think is her name, from your neck of the woods, Mike. And she had a bike. She had a gravel bike that I showed in that video and took pictures of that did not have seat stays at the time, and it was only because it wasn't done.
Oh, cycles.
Yeah, everyone thought it was gonna be sick. That's how it was gonna be, and she said that she's like, well, I could do that. Like, it would work just fine. I'd want to brace the chainstay a little bit, but like, yeah, she pretty much said what you said, Alvin, that there's just not a lot of force going through that, and it would be fine.
I don't believe you. I'm looking at the back end of my bike. It's a triangle, and those seat stays, like if I just took the seat stays off, my rear end is just gonna just be flexing everywhere, up, down, left, right. I'm sure it's making a triangle, for a reason.
Yeah, I would agree with that there's going to be more flex, especially because it's like not balanced, right? But there is a lot of strength from those chain stays. There's a ton of strength. I think one example that I think of is, I forgot what race it was, but there was a guy who in a UCI race who snapped his seat stay and just kept riding and just finished the race without it.
Oh,
yeah. Well. I'll figure out what it was, but it happened, I think, 2 years ago. So I have my doubts too, just looking at it visually, and I would never want to have a bike that doesn't have a chainstay unless we're in the future in Tron world or whatever, or AI is taking over or something. But anyways, long story short, super small seat stays here.
Okay. They've done some smart spec choices as well to get that weight ultra low. We got TPU tubes. We have those crazy reserve wheels as well. I think they're, Alvin, were they like close to 1,000 grams or 1,100 grams?
1170 is what they were on my scale.
Jeez.
So they should have been a little bit lighter, but that's fine. Because they were saying it's 60 grams saved over the current 3437 turbulent Aero, which I think comes in at like 12, like low 12s, like 1220 or something.
I will say that I think it is really cool and interesting when you get these super focused bikes like Cervelo doing an S5, because they do an S5, they could do an R5. Do you know what I mean? They don't have to do like a something that kind of blends both of those worlds. And I mean, I think back to when all the bikes we rode were climbing bikes. Like everybody just wanted the super light bike, and there's like life to that, So you actually made a good point here. Let's talk about how this thing rides. You made a good point earlier, very practical point, pragmatic, when you said the slope needs to be, whatever, 6 or 7% for this bike to make a lot of sense. But
for me, as a non-pro,
for you, as a non-pro, us as a non-pro, and everybody listening, but riding a bike that light feels really freaking good in all sorts of other places and times. And do you think there's something to be said for like that being your only bike?
Yeah, I think so. Like if you're not racing or whatever the heck, or if you don't have any intention to race,
Josh is just dying inside right now.
No, it's actually I'm torn because we've talked about the Addict RC and how much I absolutely love it. And it's the same thing. It's technically slower, but my God, it's nice. You walk up to those bikes and you bike like the R5 or the Addict RC, you pick that bike up to like move it somewhere and it just feels good. It talks to your soul.
Well,
Aero bikes do too in a different way, but
it's not even the weight thing for me. It's just like, I think of this one very like wherever, like there's one climb that I film all of these videos at basically. And it's like a 40-minute climb that I usually do. 35 minutes, something like that. There's like specific hairpins that'll go to get up and over the hairpin. It's like 12, 14% or whatever. And the bike just feels so good. Like powering up and over that. And then likewise, like those low speed stuff, it just feels really good. But also just like turn in if you're going fast. Like the turn in just feels so quick. And like you can feel the bike kind of like buzzing underneath you. Whereas like these kind of heavier bikes or like more Aero where the tubes are bigger, like you still feel stuff, but it feels like deadened a little bit. So the word that I like to think of is like it feels really bright.
Yes.
You know?
Like a bright, happy, shiny personality. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Descending on this thing, does it feel sketchy at all? Tell me about ride quality. Is it flexy? It's really light.
So I'm pretty lightweight, like 130-ish pounds, which is about 60 kilos. And I didn't have any trouble like cornering or whatever, or like feeling that there was any flex or anything like that. I think the only thing here, and I think this is largely because I'm not used to 26 mil wide tires, is that like the 26 mil wide tires, like they'll get eaten up by kind of like ruts in the road and cracks and that type of thing, which I have to be careful about. And I did feel like the tire kind of, and this is anecdotal and I don't think this is because of the tires necessarily, but like I would feel it kind of slip in places that were like a tiny bit loose, where I knew that with my 30 mil tires, I was generally fine.
Isn't it cheating that they put 26s on there? Like in the real world, we all know that 30s and 32s are the tires. Guys are racing on 30s and 32s. So 26s, it's like cheating. Nobody wants to run 26s, do they?
I mean, it's obvious. It's absolutely cheating. Like I said this in the review again. I'll link it down below. Like Cervelo literally designed the geometry around a 29 mil wide tire. Like, like that's why they have a lower bottom bracket drop and that type of thing than before, among other things. And I don't know. Like Scott with their Attic, they put like a tube only tire.
They did the same. They did the same thing with the very top model that you wanted to hit those numbers. It's a TPU tube with a special like tube only tire that's like plastic instead of rubber, and it's just crazy light. And yeah, nobody's gonna run it, but you know what? That's okay. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
It's we talked about telling a story last time. I love that Cervelo. And not every brand does this, but Cervelo has done it and Scott has done it, where they tell you this story about being obsessive, about saving a gram on the UDH. And I'm like, yes, please.
Yeah. I have a lot of admiration for that. I also talked about one of the downsides in the review being that it's super expensive and I wish I could afford it. I did some math, and this bike in like 2006 would have cost like $8,000 or something like that. Which is a lot of money, but like in 20 years ago, you're getting rim brakes and electronic and like mechanical shifting.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I mean, dudes, I could talk for hours about how much things cost, but I am not a believer that things are too expensive, and that just made a lot of people really mad. You know, you can spend as much as you want. I can't, but like you can go order a Bastion if you want and like do your thing. Or you could get an absolutely ridiculous Cannondale with Ultegra, and it's like perfect.
Yeah.
You know, and it's way better than a $5,000 bike from 10 years ago. So, and again, it's like so subjective as well. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, this is not a bike for me probably, but it makes me think of, you know, back in the day, and like I had an ultralight. I mean, it was like 15 pounds at the time, it was an aluminum TCR with like American classic wheels. It was the lightest thing I ever owned. And I remember that it, just like you said, it had so much life to it. So I think these bikes make sense.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think of it as like for car companies, like they'll have like I don't know. I think of like Ford, for example. They have their new Mustang GTD, which is this $500,000 like crazy design car that you'll probably never see in person in your lifetime because it's so wild. But it's based on the Mustang, and then they're going to bring some of that stuff down to like lower
Yeah.
price points. So the way I see this bike is like, I love riding this bike, but it also makes me really excited to see where the soloist goes. How much weight are they going to be able to cut off of that bike? Are they going to make the soloist not ride like it's made of wood? In my experience,
Yeah, this is a Halo bike, and it's good that Halo bikes exist.
Yep.
I think that's what we're all saying.
Yep, 100%. Josh, let's take a 180 here and let's talk about the gravel
This is
bike.
not a Halo bike.
No. Well, it could be.
No,
for some
I don't
people.
mean that in a bad way, but it's not. This is meant to be the bike that people actually buy.
Yep, exactly. So Diverge has been around since 2014, I think, and in my mind, it's like one of the mainstay, like bread and butter gravel adventure bikes out there. They've probably sold a metric shit ton of these things over the years. So a new one is very notable. Can you give me the bullet points? What has changed compared to the previous version?
Yeah, so bigger tires. That's the biggest thing here. There's also updates to the Future Shock, which we will get it more into. It's just more adjustable, and there's some things about that. But just massive tires, and then as you alluded to in the opening, there is a bigger hole. There is more room to get things into the down tube.
Have you been able to
What's
figure out
that?
exactly what you
That's
can fit
it.
in there? Like through the hole?
I didn't. This is how I look at that stuff. Can I fit a jacket in there? That's what I want out of that's what I want.
Interesting.
Not just an ultra thin jacket. So I can get
No.
my ultra thin pullover into the hole on my Stiggy, but I can't get my like Giro baggier, like real waterproof jacket in there. Do you think you could get something like that in?
Absolutely.
The new
So
Awesome.
I always carry all my flat repair in my jersey pocket. It's just in a little pouch from something Hazel, but and I do that. Part of that is because I don't like to have like bags and things on bikes, but also because I'm a reviewer and I'm always jumping on different bikes. I don't want to forget things places. But so I got my flat repair there, and I don't mind that at all. But I do, if I'm worried about it raining, not it's an ultralight jacket. Yeah, I have a POC jacket that I absolutely love, but the kind of jacket you're talking about, like a real rain jacket, a real like jacket that's going to actually keep you warm, that can be tough to fit places, and I want it to fit in the down tube. And an NV Mog will absolutely fit it, and this bike will absolutely fit it also.
Good. And it'll also fit 2.2-inch tires as well.
It will fit too. So Specialized did this sort of weird thing with this bike where I don't even really understand their point. I think it is just that there's variances in tires and things. But okay, so the official thing is that it will fit 50 millimeters of tire, except that that's with an 8 millimeter clearance on either side, and the normal ISO standard is 4 millimeters. So they're saying you can also fit a 2.1 or a 2.2 with 4 millimeters of clearance. So it's this weird like double official thing. It's like I think what they're really recommending is a 50 millimeter with mud clearance, or if it's it's dry, then yeah, you can go to a 2.2.
Okay.
So it seems like if it was ISO mountain bike standard, it would be 52 mil tire clearance, which is the weirdest number. No one ever says that, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah. Well, the important thing is you could fit big tires in there now, and that's obviously the way that everything is going. I also forgot to mention the aluminum Diverge frames also have SWAT, and Specialized says that this is the first aluminum gravel frames with down tube storage. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what they're saying. So that's
what they're saying. I'm pretty sure they're not lying with that kind of thing.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's the thing I was going to mention. I'm super stoked for the Alloy bikes to get SWAT.
Yeah, the Alloy bikes are really capable. I didn't get to ride one. I only saw it a little bit, but it is worth highlighting how capable they are. They still take 50 mil tires. They have the SWAT, like great bike.
I am positive that Trek has aluminum mountain bikes last year with down tube storage in them. So it's not like, I know it's a mountain bike, but I don't think they're the first aluminum frame with down tube storage, but
they're
the
the first
gravel.
aluminum gravel. Yes, that's the distinction. They
You know
even
what that's
mentioned that
like?
they're
Sorry, that's like the fastest SUV time around the Nürburgring. You know, it's like the fastest yellow SUV with these tires or whatever.
Yeah.
whatever.
Everyone's
They
doing
even
that.
they
Like,
actually they mention that there are mountain bikes that have storage, but this is the first
Okay.
gravel bike.
Okay. Another big thing here is the updated Geo. A lot of it is good. I think some of it didn't go far enough, maybe. So the numbers that I have in front of me, Josh, it has 85 millimeters of BB drop, which is very good. It has 634 millimeters of stack, which is always very good. So I feel like those two numbers are going to put you, it's going to give you that like in the
You
bike
must be
feeling.
looking at a what size are you
large.
looking at?
He's
Yeah,
looking at his
58.
size. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
my
looking at it.
size.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I just wanted
Yeah.
to let people know that is a 58, everyone.
Yeah. So to me, like those numbers, when you're coming down to sending on a gravel road and it's loose and you have corners, you really want that like low in the bike feeling. So that should do that. I feel like it's a bit conservative on the front end. 412 reach on a large with a 71 head angle with a future shock. It's slacker and longer than some and not as much as others. So I would have liked to see
Yeah.
more there, to be honest.
Yeah, I didn't hammer on that point because I actually like a more road bike-esque bike, gravel bike. But you're right. I mean, there's no way
It
around
fits
that.
mountain bike
not,
tires,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
The other thing that I want to touch on, well, that's impossible not to touch on, all of these bikes, aluminum or carbon, they come with the Future Shock. Tell us about the Future Shock.
Yeah, so this is what this whole bike hinges on. And I had to kind of come to that point. Like that was part of the review. I'm like looking at the Future Shock and trying to understand it. And in the end, if you want Future Shock, this is your bike. And we can talk a little bit more about that. And if you don't want Future Shock, then there are others. But what Future Shock is it is arguably suspension. You could go back and forth about that. It suspends the hands versus the bike. And what that means is that a lot of people would say suspension, what suspension does, the definition of suspension is it keeps the tire in contact with the ground, and this will not do that. The tire will still skip across like something. However, you will be able to continue to hold the handlebar as your hand, it will dampen the handlebar. And the big thing with 3.0, although it's not actually across all versions of the 3.0, so there's 3.1, 3.2, and 3.3 Future Shocks, depending on the model of build that you get in the Diverge. And 3.3 is adjustable, and there are no clicks anymore. You can dial it in or out, and it has it's infinite adjustment. And this is something I don't know how I'm like not sure how much I touched on it in the review. I know I mentioned it in the video, but here's the thing about that is when I first rode it, I would use it like a lockout. We would get to the paved part and I would lock it out. We would get to the gravel part and I would open it all the way up. And I was like, all I need is 2 clicks really on this. I'm just dialing in and out. I was using it wrong. What they really want you to do is to just find the spot where it feels good to you, where it still damps your ride, but it doesn't bob in a way that's annoying to you. And then just leave it alone. That's the idea there. And the adjustability is just so you can do that. Now, if you don't have the 3.3 and you do have the 3.2, you still have hydraulic. You can think of it like a bump stop in a car, right? So there's a spring, and when it gets to the end of the spring, instead of on a car, it'll be like rubber or polyurethane if it's a race car, or whatever it is. But in this bike, what happens is at the end of that travel, it will now there's this hydraulic dampener, and it's just like it's greatly increased spring rate. But because it's hydraulic, it's not like banging into something.
So it's not just a rebound adjustment?
The dial, you mean?
Yeah. I thought the dial was like a rebound adjustment thing.
Right, but what it is, I'm talking about the hydraulic. So the old version, the 2.0, didn't have the hydraulics.
Okay.
And now what happens? So you've made your adjustment, whatever. You got your rebound where you want it to be. Everything's good. And then you hit something big and you bottom out the spring because there's a spring in there. And then if you have the 3.2 or 3.3, you will then run into the hydraulic, like there's fluid in there, and it will soften. It's like a higher spring rate, but it'll soften it.
So I have that Cade Creek fork, which does not have a damper. And I also have the Fox and a RockShox gravel forks as well. There's a huge difference between, even in these small amounts of travels, there's a huge difference between damped travel and undamped travel. And I'm not reviewing the Cane Creek fork, although we could do that. But I will say that the Cane Creek fork is everything you need, suspension quality wise, if you're not riding like super chunk, but where that undamped feel, in my experience, starts to become noticeable is on longer stretches of rough stuff. Like if you have an undamped fork and you hit a few bumps and you're going 40 kilometers an hour, it's very helpful. But if you have an undamped fork and you have, a half kilometer of minefield descent in front of you, an undamped fork, it's quite different than something with damping that gives you more control. So I would say
wallows, right?
It's wallows, but also you're not in control of the stroke. It bottoms and it extends at the same speed. There's no damping. So what will happen is all of a sudden you're in places in that stroke where you might not expect to be. I feel like I'm talking like a mountain biker here, to be honest.
Well,
no, that's what this is. Yeah.
Yeah, you could definitely notice the difference. And like personally, from my experience, if anybody that's out there listening is thinking about a new Diverge, like I haven't ridden it, Josh has, but I would always choose a damped fork 100%. And I will say, like, I feel like it's easy to shit on something like this because it's like half suspension, but also it's much lighter, it's much sleeker, it's much more aero, it's much easier to adjust. There's very little maintenance.
Yeah.
It's much less expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
yeah.
like $400 or something if you actually buy it.
There's a lot of pluses to this. I think the drawbacks are obvious. Of course, it's not controlling the wheel. It's controlling your hands and stuff. It's isolating you and not the bike. But I mean, I don't know. It's kind of neat. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so it's a 20 millimeter. It's 20 millimeters of suspension. That's what this comes down to. And I will say also, you can change out the springs also. So in the 3.1, 3.2, and 3.3, you buy for like $15. You buy a pack of 3 springs, and you can change the springs.
Okay.
And that will just adjust. That's the same thing as dialing the thing if you have it.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is what this comes down to for me. Is that this is a 20 millimeter suspension. What do you think, Alvin?
Yeah, I mean, that is what it is. Like, I'm going back to field test where we had the same feature shock damper because that Roubaix, I think, had a 3.3 damper on it.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
And I was pretty skeptical of it there. Like, how much sense does that make on a bike like that? The added maintenance, added complexity, But on something like this, like a Diverge, where you're not going to be you buy this bike for comfort and to enjoy your surroundings as opposed to going absolutely as fast as possible. And I don't think there's any doubt that. Oh, but they also say that's 11 watts faster or something like that. Right?
Yeah. So I'm gonna throw it out there that Specialized thinks you are fat. The way they phrase it is that you are faster with Future Shock, but
if that's the case, then why is Matt Beers riding on a Crux and not a?
Oh.
I have really
the answers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us.
Because he's a racer, and racers don't want to use anything that they think might slow them down, even if there's evidence otherwise. Racers are not a good barometer for what makes sense or not, especially drop bar racers, to be honest.
Yeah.
I 100%. Oh man, this is going to get some heat, but I 100% believe Specialized, because when I put a rigid fork on my bike and I go for a gravel ride, I go slower up the hills, not just down the hills. I go slower on flat ground. I go slower everywhere. And I know that Squamish isn't like the use case for a Diverge, of course, but I do think you're going faster. You're more relaxed and you could carry more speed. Do you agree, Josh, or no?
I agree. So I think
Okay.
it's just what this comes down to is it's like there's a much bigger conversation here than Specialized Diverge 4. And that's the thing about this bike is that I kind of can fall into the marketing of like Future Shock being all this things, all this, it's so this great thing. But it's like just you have to just stop and you have to go, okay, this is suspension. And do you think that suspension makes you faster on gravel, or does it not matter? And when I always think about it is a situation like Unbound, where you want to go as fast as you can all day, and you don't want to have to slow down because you're like getting bounced around on little things all the time. And I suspect that yes, absolutely, I believe them that it is faster.
Unbound's pretty quick. It's a pretty smooth thing.
Unbound is
Yeah.
so rough and chunky. It's so rough.
There are parts that are really rough and
exactly
chunky.
where you want suspension, I feel like.
Yes, and what's interesting about Unbound is that you're moving really fast, and it is rough, but it's not so rough, right? 20 mil would probably do it. You don't need 40 mil. You don't need a suspension fork that's less aero and has 40 mil and is heavy.
And then you could also run possibly lighter tires, narrower tires that are more aero. Like there's a whole like system discussion here as well too. If you're using suspension, if you're racing, you could possibly run lighter weight tires and wheels. I don't know. Yeah, no, I honestly suspension should be on every gravel bike no matter where you live, but that's just me.
But then I think, okay, well, so here's the thing. And I had to re-record a little bit of the video because the Trek checkpoint is $2,000 less for what I would consider the same bike. Now, I had to re-record because it is not technically the same bike because they give you alloy wheels instead of the carbon wheels that the Diverge at $6,000 gives you. But Rival 13 speed on both bikes and 50 millimeter of clearance. Now, again, the Specialized will actually do 2.2, but let's pretend for a minute, like I would like to pretend that 50 mil is actually enough. and I go, ooh, $4,000 alloy wheels, but yeah, that's maybe a good deal. Unless you're like, oh, I want suspension. In which case, there's just like, this is the one to get.
If you're thinking about suspension, the checkpoint at least, like you can use the suspension fork really easily.
You could,
and if I'm trying to just
add
suspension, why wouldn't I just get a dedicated gravel fork? I'm not.
Well,
so
okay,
I mean, this is like off base. All I was saying was like, yeah, this makes sense on a bike like this. Like this makes a ton of sense. Like we kind of poo-pooed it on the Roubaix. I think it makes a ton of sense here. It's user serviceable. It's relatively inexpensive compared to other suspension.
Here's the thing though. I think that somebody walking into Trek and buying a $4,000 checkpoint with Rival 13 speed is not then going to go out and buy what's a Fox suspension fork? $1,100, $900 maybe.
Okay.
They're not going to then go out and buy a $900 suspension fork and rearrange the whole front of the bike. There's a small subset of people that do.
Why are you? I was saying I was on your side when you're trying to compare them to checkpoint.
My side, quite honestly, for myself, is I have realized that I don't actually need suspension. That for the riding that I do, yeah, there's like
the bike
small
feels
portions,
brighter and poppier and lighter.
Yeah,
without
happier,
it.
I want it.
Yeah, and happier, whatever other adjectives I was saying for the R5. Yeah.
Okay.
The thing is, I just don't ride rough enough stuff.
We could argue about suspension for another hour.
Yeah.
Josh, tell me how the new Diverge rode. Tell me the handling. Were you comfy? All that stuff.
Yes. Okay. I actually really loved it. And the reason I bring up the Trek checkpoint is I love that bike too. They're both very similar. These are these mid-range gravel bikes that, yeah, we could argue about the geometry not being enough. But here's the thing. They feel good. They still feel peppy. They don't feel slow. They feel really fun to ride. There was a moment in one of my rides where the suspension actually really saved me because I'm a terrible descender and I was on a road that I did not know, and coming down this fast, it's a short period, but I'm coming down this fast gravel section and I'm like, wow, this Future Shock is really amazing. Look how it just soaks up the washboards. And then very suddenly, people who ride these kind of roads will know the washboards turned into giant freaking holes. You can't just slam on the brakes. It's not like a road bike where you can just like haul it down. Like if you do that, you're gonna cause problems. You gotta like ease into your brakes. Only use the rear. Like you gotta be careful, or you're gonna go over the front, or you're gonna like all kinds of things. Well, in that situation, I could not have slowed quick enough. So I like just went into the into these giant holes, and the combination of enough, like the geometry and then the suspension, the Future Shock, I was able to keep my hands on the bars, keep like upright and slow down, and it was great. And I'm like, yeah, this is what this is for, and it was freaking, I'm sold. Now there were other situations, and again, this is my riding, so there were 14, that was a maybe 80 mile ride, and there were 14 miles of gravel in that ride, and it was amazing for that. Man, did it feel slow descending. Descending. Like, I'm usually the Aero guy. I ride with my friend James, and he actually super tuck. He's on a Moots with round tubes, and he actually has to super tuck to keep up with me on descents usually, and I can just like coast in a regular tuck. And I was on his wheel, absolutely like cranking out watts to just like stay with him on a descent. So, I don't know. Do I love it? This bike is great. I would think that I really want, my whole point here is I really want people to think about the riding that they actually do. Don't buy an SUV because once a year you go like, what riding do you actually do? Now, if you actually ride stuff, Unbound-esque kind of stuff all the time, if you go out all day and you're on gravel, this bike rocks.
Yeah, definitely bread and butter gravel bike for sure, especially the aluminum ones. Yeah. All right, Josh, we're going to wrap it up. Thanks for all the info on the new Diverge 4. Alvin, you told us all about the new Cervelo R5. Everybody that's listening, you can go and read a ton about those bikes on the Velo homepage, like you should. And you could also watch a video about each bike as well. Alvin made a video about the R5, and Josh made a video about the new Diverge 4. And it actually has a bunch of riding in Slovenia as well, which looks really, really nice. Josh, good job on that video. Come back next week. We're probably going to talk about a whole bunch more new bikes and new gear. We'll see you then.